Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for On the Money, presented by Embassy National Bank.
Hi, everybody. This is Joe Moss, and welcome to this edition of On the Money, brought to you by Embassy National Bank, an FDIC-insured national bank right here in Lawrenceville, Georgia. We are the #1 small business show on Business RadioX. As you know, we discuss topics designed to help small business succeed because at Embassy National Bank, we're proud of how we help small business. I'm Joe Moss, your host and president at the bank, and we welcome you to the Subaru of Gwinnett studio. So we're very privileged to have an incredible guest today. I think this is going to be a really good conversation. We have Perry Tindol, who is now the CFO and a partner in Allgood Pest Solutions. So, Perry, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Joe.
As you know, on this show, we like to try to come up with topics that will help small business, and Perry has, along with his family, have built and established a strong and growing business. You can still consider it a small business, I guess. And we're going to talk to him about some of the things that have worked and haven't worked and just kind of have a nice conversation. So we appreciate you being here.
Very good.
Can you talk about Allgood Pest Solutions and how you guys got started?
Well, I'd really have to go all the way back to where the family started in the business, which dates back to the 40s. Red Tindol, which is the grandfather and father of some of my partners in the business, was a captain in the Army Corps of Engineers back in World War II, and he worked training the military in the South Pacific, Guadalcanal, for control of mosquitoes. I mean,
Wow.
Now with the Zika virus, of course, here we are many years later, and the mosquitoes are kind of driving our business once again. But once he left the service, he came and along with his uncle, his brother-in-law actually at the time, Jim Allgood Sr., which is my partner and chairman, Jimmy Allgood's father, started a company called Georgia Exterminating back in the early 50s, and actually then the main company in the market as it is still today, Orkin Exterminating, the Orkin family came to him and offered and bought the business from them, and Red Tindol went to work and was with Orkin for almost 20-something years until the company was acquired by Rollins, and at that point
I remember that. Yeah,
ventured out and started Tindol Services with his two sons, Bubba and Mike. And
he wasn't covered by a non-compete or anything?
Well, they actually, the exit that was one of mutual consent, and it was and he aligned himself with some real good strategic partners at the time and started family business in 67. 20-something years later, the business was actually sold to Waste Management. They acquired companies across the United States, and we're looking to grow and compete with companies like Orkin and Terminix and some of those. And we were part of that organization for a matter of a few years, learned a lot, but as the corporate world tends to go sometimes, we came to learn one day that we no longer were working for Waste Management. We were now part of Service Master and Terminix, and kind of our world changed. We made a decision in late 1990 to move back to the Atlanta area, myself and two of my cousins, Mike and Chuck Tindol, and to start Allgood Services of Georgia at the time, which has later became Allgood Pest Solutions in name.
So other than Pest Solutions, what else do you do in the services company?
Well, depending upon the area, and we do have offices in Knoxville and down in Brunswick and all like that, where we do some lawn and turf. The other things that we deal with, which really align itself with the pest, is wildlife type work. That's remediation with wildlife getting into homes as we've kind of taken over their territory. We have a real strong team of people that do that, mainly in the metro Atlanta area.
And the squirrels will eat you alive.
Yeah, and the key to it is not just trapping them, but you gotta, you trap them, you release them, but if you don't do it properly, then they come right back.
And then you got to cut all the branches off the top of your house so they can't get back in, and build the wire cage so they don't chew through.
Yeah, that's the mechanical part. The mechanical remediation is a key part of it.
Well, unfortunately, we're a victim of squirrel infestation, and it was not cheap, but we got it taken care of. So in 1991, you put Allgood Pest Control business together. What did it look like in 1991? Three guys in a truck, right?
Yeah, well, we say 3 men and 2 trucks. 3 men, 2 trucks, and
some
a trailer.
pesticide, right?
Yeah, and that's right. And our launching point was we would meet at Rexall Drugs in Duluth, Georgia for breakfast and plan out our day. And
was it mostly just household work at that point?
Actually, we probably start now focus more on the commercial piece,
okay.
Even though the residential has far outgrown the commercial piece today. We had some name recognition, and we were afforded an opportunity with a couple of large organizations. Quite honestly, we secured the Coca-Cola corporate headquarters early on, and the varsity early on, and in fact, during our first couple of years, we had, between those and a relationship we had at the time at Delta and the airport, we kind of had the cornerstone of
is Delta still a client?
No, we no longer do any work down at the airport.
Yeah, I know how that happens, unfortunately. Yeah. Right. But today, the company that started out with 3 men and 2 trucks out of a Duluth Rexall drugstore, you're going to do $30 million in revenue in 2017. Is that the projection?
Well, that would be our hope. That maybe that's at least that. So, but we do feel confident we'll reach that goal.
Now, when you started, did y'all have a business plan? Did you? Or did you just say, we need to just go do this?
No, I will tell you probably the one thing that we learned of most value from the time that we spent with waste management was just how important the budget process was. I mean, to really lay out a financial plan. I mean, you can have a business plan, and but you gotta. One of the things I see with a lot of small businesses is it really evolves around cash and checking. And they really don't anticipate what their cash flow is and what they're able to do. And so we started doing a budget right from the start. And that really is, even now today, is a pretty intense process for us and our managers that starts toward the end of the year and goes on for several weeks. And
do you budget 1 year in advance?
We do. We budget 1 year in advance, but we do quarterly reviews. We bring everybody in on a quarterly basis and look at where we are, and kind of, if we need to reposition something, then we do. We don't surrender the revenue back, but we look at our direct expense piece and how we can manage that.
Sure. So you budget the revenue and expenses, sales goals. Everybody kind of knows what they have to do to get the budget done.
Correct.
Okay. Are there rewards at the end of the year?
Actually, we've kind of modified it even to go to more of a quarterly type. We still have annual, but we have quarterly type incentives now for all our people are a part of it. We really, work hard. Our culture piece, we think, is the cornerstone of our business, and we really work hard to promote ownership thinking. And as part of ownership thinking, we really tried to incentivize that for them for performance.
Now, back when you first got started, was there were 4 of you?
There were actually 6 equal partners, but there were essentially 4 of us that were active in the business.
Okay,
and that's kind of how it worked.
Okay. Were one of them a rainmaker versus maintenance, or did everybody try to do all things?
No, we had, each of us brought, I think, individual talents to the table. And then obviously collectively it made us that much stronger. Chuck Tindol, who actually is, just as a side note, is scheduled to be a 3rd generation president of our national association starting this year, of which there's over 20,000 companies in our industry. anyway, he's kind of the marketing and sales piece, and his brother Mike was really the educational and people development piece and all, and I was, and Mike's now operations. I was, to begin with, kind of the operations piece and the financial piece.
Okay.
Sometimes they conflicted with each other.
Sure,
And
sure.
now my responsibility is more toward the financial part.
And are you still with just 6 partners?
Actually, we have, as partners have aged, we have somewhat of an exit strategy for partners to retire from the business.
Okay.
We're actually down to, there's 5 partners, of which there are 4 principal owners, and then we have a 5th partner who owns a smaller share that is exited to some degree, but not completely exited from the business.
Okay. Let's talk about family business. We talked a little bit before the show. How do you handle non-family superstars within a family business?
Non-family superstars within a family business is, quite honestly, I think part of the opportunity there is driven somewhat by the size of the business to a degree too. We've been very fortunate to create a culture where people wanted to, kind of the servant leadership, they wanted to stay. They were proud where they worked, who they worked for. Really, if you create that true ownership thinking sense, then they're going to stay. I mean, it makes for a happy employee, and they show that out in the public too.
Do you have children in the business that come up?
We have had family members to work in the business. We still have family members in the business. Kind of the succession piece, or where that goes to the next generation, is, it's still an evolving piece. Because both my sons came to work in the business. Both of them left. One of them has come back. So we kind of see, a little bit of.
I bet you hold them to a higher standard than you hold everybody else.
Well, there's a certain truth to that, but in their perspective, my son framed it this way: said, "If I do good, it's because of you. If I do bad,
it's because of me."
Yeah. So there's no, quite honestly, there's no win in it. I mean, even there's been a lot of discussion about what advice would you give to somebody who has children come in the business, and I think looking back, both my sons would have benefited from having worked outside the business to begin with. I didn't pull them in; they came by choice coming out of college. But I think they would have benefited from having gone out and worked somewhere else.
Now, have you? Where did you go to college?
My college career started at Georgia Tech to be an engineer, and I actually graduated from Georgia Southern.
Wow!
And we have a lot of family members. We have all the universities.
And what year was that?
I graduated in 1978.
78. Okay, so you were 2 years. I'm 2 years younger than you, I think. No, older than you. 2 years older. So you kind of cranked this thing. You got out of school about the same time I did. Jobs weren't very plentiful.
Right.
So what did you do right out of school?
Well, I actually moved to Atlanta. I'm from Dublin, Georgia originally, which is where the Tindol family originated at. I moved coming out of college. First of all, when I came to Georgia Tech, I left Tech because I didn't like Atlanta. But when I went to Georgia Southern, it turns out all my friends were from Atlanta, and I kept coming to Atlanta and really fell in love with it. So when I got out of college, I knew I was coming here and started to work. Tindol Services was already established, and I started to work with them in the service business.
Right.
And just a real quick thing I would share. I never will forget coming out of college and being proud you got that college degree, going to somebody's house, ringing the doorbell. The housekeeper comes to the door and turns around and looks and said, "The bug man's here." And I'm thinking, boy, I
worked hard
man.
for
That's
that
right.
title.
That's right. So.
Well, when you first got started back in 1991 or thereabouts, were there the initial couple of years weren't very plentiful? Were there any times when you guys looked at each other and said, "What the heck have we done"? I
think when when you start a small business and while that business is, developing or growing or maturing, there's plenty of, obstacles, things to come across. And yes, there were. I mean, look, I moved back here in 1991 with 2 small children, a wife who, because we were moving, not working, and very little income. Because starting out, I mean, we started the business on $45,000 in capital and a credit line on a shopping center, and that's how we kind of built it. So there, we weren't heavily capitalized, so there were, and it always, I mean, the biggest challenges was meeting the financial piece.
Sure.
I mean, it was tough at times.
Sure, and I guess the marketing of it was pretty much bootstrap marketing, I would think, correct?
It was.
Knocking on doors and
it was. And again, one of the things that we did benefit from, even though we weren't a Tindol Services or the last name, the Tindol name had strong brand recognition in itself.
Right.
We had relationships that, quite honestly, we look back on that early on put us in places where we were in front of decision makers,
sure,
as opposed to trying to get past the gatekeeper.
Sure.
And that made a big difference.
That's a big difference.
Yes, it was.
And then, but then it all always comes down to price, and you probably had to maybe cut a little bit to get in the door, but that's what you did, right?
I'll quote Red Tindall. He said, when I questioned one time about price, he said, and we yes, you have to be competitive, but one of the things is he never questioned his competitors' price because his words were only they know the value of their service.
Right.
And so we really tried to sell our knowledge and our reputation and what we brought to the table.
Got a break for a minute. This is Joe Moss. You're listening to On the Money. We're talking with Perry Tindol, who is CFO and partner at Allgood Pest Services, very successful business here in Atlanta. And we wanted to get Perry to share some experiences about what it took to build the business, because as he said, he started off with 3 men and 2 trucks. And so we're learning about some of the early days. So one thing that I've noticed from the brochure that you've got, which I think is impressive, you have this for all your customers?
That's actually an internal piece for our employees.
Okay.
It really helps them to reference back to, to kind of the core values and, as far as an organization and all is concerned.
How important is all this?
We think it is very important. I would tell you that the greatest transition in our business has probably occurred over the last 10 years in terms of and maybe a little longer when we were our growth was kind of internal and external. We would find a well-respected small business in a market, and we were able to partner with the people to grow. But one of the missing pieces was really the with the employees themselves, and kind of what's in it for them, and this just kind of keeps them focused. And if you kind of read through it, it's a little bit of a way of them to hold us accountable. Are we delivering upon the vision that we've set as far as the company and all is concerned? And then it challenges them for what they can bring to the table to allow us all to be successful toward reaching our ultimate goals.
When did you all start putting these together? Was this a day one thing you started with?
No. I think with any business, it's an evolving process. I mean, certainly the way we went about doing our service and what we're, it's kind of like the integrity word. Either you have it or you don't. I mean, you build your business about integrity and fair prices and doing the right thing, so to speak. And I think as you grow, sometimes you kind of maybe define it a little better. I mean, because one of the challenges as a business grows is how do you reach not just your customers from an external standpoint, but how do you reach your internal customers, those people that work for you, who represent your brand, and this is designed to really, I mean, we've obviously grown to a lot more employees than 3, from a number of
How
years
many people
ago.
do you have now?
About 280 people.
Wow.
And it's important that every one of those people understand what our core values are and what our
I think it's
mission
very.
is.
You mentioned servant leadership, so I can see that in you. That you don't sound to me like a demanding type of person, but certainly you walk the walk, I would think. And but these core values are interesting, and I like what it's saying. We got a mission control statement. You list out your core values, your core focus, your philosophy, and your history, and so I can see how an employee could really buy into this.
Yeah, we this is our second year being named as one of AJC's top workplaces in Atlanta. We're proud of that because that's a scorecard that our employees keep.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the organization that kind of puts it together looks at a lot of values, but I think employee satisfaction is at the heart of it.
Yeah.
So we feel very proud of that. We've been recognized multiple times for our best in home services, both here in Gwinnett with the Gwinnett publication and the Gwinnett Daily Post, and in a lot of the other communities that we're in, and that's representative of our people. I mean, that's where it starts at. I mean, you're only as good as the people around you.
Wow. Yeah, everything's a people business, isn't it?
It is. Yeah,
Everything.
Killing bugs. Everybody kills bugs. I mean, I'm talking about in our business.
I wanted to kill a bug last night. So,
there you go.
Yeah. It's interesting. Just as an aside, our bank is chartered by members of the South Asian community that are here and very successful entrepreneurs, and most of them practice the Hindu religion. They don't kill things. And I find that impressive. If they find a roach, they sweep them out the door. They won't kill them. I find a roach. It's kind of end of roach days. So pretty interesting how all that works. Well, let's do this. How many times over the years have you had to kind of change your outlook on the business and create a fairly significant structural change?
The unique ownership and the interaction between owners has remained in place from the beginning, meaning that the three of us that kind of started and had our defined roles, our roles may have shifted some. We've always kind of kept an equal balance related to no partners more significant or more important than the other, and we've really, we've been able to maintain that aspect. I mean, you always have decisions as you grow between centralized and decentralized and processes and different things and all, and really how do you create systems that ensure even the simplest of things like, is the cash that was collected in this operation all making it to the bank? I mean, so there, but our model, the foundation of our business has always been built around, quite honestly, around the people and the service and how our people represent ourselves. I mean, the way our vehicles look, the way our uniforms look, the way our even the icon having a very defined basis of it. The most dramatic shift, though, was in 2003 when we went through the branding process, when we went from kind of this conglomerate of businesses operating in different markets under various entities to a single Allgood Pest Solutions, and
you had bought entities, various around Metro Atlanta as well as throughout Georgia.
Yeah, but now the ones if we were already existing in that market, they would tuck in and they would become at the time Allgood Services or Allgood Pest Solutions. But in markets such as say Brunswick, Georgia, Glenn County, when we went there in the mid '90s, we had Allgood had no brand recognition there. The company that was there, we operated under that brand name for several years. Mm-hmm. Did the same thing in Macon, Georgia, in Dalton, Georgia. And then we would begin to incorporate our name into it. Now we're much more rapid to make that transition because our brand is typically has grown, is stronger than perhaps the brand that's there. But we have to.
So you can assimilate better when you do that.
Yeah. And the key is when those businesses come along to be able to retain the people that are going out to people's homes and are representing the organization, because those are where so many of those relationships are at.
Sure. I bet you don't target things like market share or anything like that. What you target is just doing the right thing every day, I would think.
That's right. I mean, we certainly have we have defined what we're hoping to achieve from a growth standpoint. I mean, we do a lot of tracking on trends and what our growth areas and opportunities. Again, back to the budget and process itself. But now we have we do a fair amount of marketing as far as company and all, because but the big focus now is ways to touch the customer, because so many times our services may just be outside only. We don't even see the customer. There's no interaction.
Right.
And making sure to find ways that it kind of becomes real at the time. I mean, communicating, being able, quite honestly, to communicate with them while they're sitting at their desk at work, that we've been to their home and this is what we found and this is what we did, and building value for the service that's been delivered.
How is, kind of an open question, but I'll let you interpret the way you want, how has technology changed your business?
It's I wouldn't say revolutionized it, but it's certainly, I mean, we've gone from the typical small operator in our business doing business off of ledger cards to handhelds. I mean, Geotab or different, routing systems, as far as to try to optimize getting people there in the most efficient manner. Just
customer contact.
Yeah, customer contact. I mean, even to the point, I mean, our all of our contracts and everything else being electronic now. I mean, used to, I'd go out in the 70s and 80s. If I sold a service to somebody, it was the next day, or I got the paperwork turned in. We're reaching out to them. Today, one of our people signs somebody up, and usually before they leave the home, there's a scheduled service time, and they have all the information there in digital form. And just kind of has made a really big difference in terms of and being able to. A key piece for small businesses. So many times we look at things that we feel like we can't afford or don't have time for, and different things.
All this has a cost, an upfront cost.
That's right. Yeah, but then what you have to be able to do is you have to be able to translate that into not what it costs, but what the benefits it brings to the table, because usually the return on that investment is many times what you put into it.
But you won't see it maybe for a year, maybe a year and a half, and then it starts reaping the benefit.
Right. Yeah.
So were you on the cutting edge of that in your business, or is that something you kind of slowly moved into, or was it an aha moment among the partners, we got to do this, or how did all that work?
We because of our long-term family history in the industry, we have, I mean, a lot of people will tell you that they're surprised that we're in an industry where where we all get along. I mean, we compete against each other, but we have some, we have some really, I mean, we're proud of the fact that our family was a big part of bringing a high level of professionalism to this industry. And, you do that by, quite honestly, the rising tide lifts all ships. You share, you get involved in the industry. We're well involved in our national association, our state association, our local association. And, I mean, we've gone into our competitors' businesses, and they've shared information with us, and we've shared information with them, not from a pricing standpoint, but best practices, because, we only represent probably less than 25% of, households in the entire country. Now they different percentages, different forms of service, but there's plenty of business for us and our competition.
So you do outside and inside, termites, inside, all that stuff, pest control, the whole shooting match.
We do.
Okay.
One of the transformations.
Now, you don't have individual salespeople for that. That's all done. The house relationship is owned by one person. Is that the way that works?
Well, no. Actually, for us, we are segmented in some regards. First of all, on the termite side, it's important that a proper inspection be done to assess what the situation is. So we have outside salespeople that do that. There are certain pest and or other type issues that require an actual evaluation. So we have an outside sales team. We also have an inside sales team, what we call our customer care center. And so calls are routed when somebody's looking for a new service. They go to that care center first, and they evaluate whether or not it's something that needs to be handled outside or they can handle internally.
I got you.
And then the service is performed usually by a dedicated service team. Now, those people will sell additional services sometimes, but that's not their primary function in our company.
Let's go back and talk about mosquitoes for a minute. Since you got, I guess, a relative of yours got cranked up in that. I grew up in Naples, Florida, and back then mosquitoes were awful. And we had the daily mosquito patrol come by and pump this white smoke everywhere, and we'd run behind the mosquito control truck and all those things, and wondering what the heck it would do to us when we were older, but I'm still here. But I guess my question is, with the Zika virus around back in those days? Because, man, I got bit so many times.
Well, there were, insect, born illnesses go back, to the beginning of time.
Yeah.
I think part of the phenomenon is, yes, there has been, some morphing and some kind of super type bugs to come along. But I think the reality is the informational piece. Kind of that butterfly effect is much faster today than it used to be.
Sure.
And so,
well, we're also virus aware now too.
That's right.
I think.
I agree.
Now, these mosquito companies that are popping up everywhere, are they a threat to you, or how do you countermand that?
Their services are, quite honestly, every company's different in terms of what their protocol is. Our mosquito service, I guess you would say, is kind of positioned somewhat as a premium type service. Main reason being because, we do a very different, I feel like a more comprehensive service. And so, no, because would somebody looking for just mosquito control perhaps reach towards somebody like that to begin with? But the competency of our people.
They see the Mosquito Joe sign in a yard, but that's about it.
But our people, quite honestly, with our internal training, with entomologists, director of safety, different things and all like that, our evaluation process of personnel, in terms of the hiring process, I feel like if it were a football game and we were competing, that people would see that the companies such as ours providing that type of service is a higher quality service.
And if you've got mosquitoes, I'd highly recommend you take care of them, not because of the Zika virus, but they're just annoying. I have stories and growing up in the Everglades where the mosquitoes be on my arm and I'd be as black as this console right here. And I hear about everybody being afraid of the mosquito bite, and I kind of just chuckle a little bit. but I guess it is pretty dangerous because of what may have happened. Well, if you had to do it over again, would you have done it differently?
Oh, there are always opportunities for improvement, but you could always say, well, we could have gone further faster. But you know what? You could have gone too fast and might not have got there at all.
We hear those stories all the time. As a banker, I see those stories all the time, obviously. Yeah.
So I would say that it's been a great journey. I mean, and very good.
What are your challenges today? Are they different than they were 5 years ago? Is it tougher for you to be a small business? Is technology helping that, kind of taking care of the rough spots, or we're a small business. I can tell you on our side it's pretty tough. What's your perspective on that?
It is it is more difficult because I think the challenges are different in the way, and what I mean by that, you're going into environments to provide services or for people who quite honestly have access to information in many ways, the information highway, that they're all at least a lot of them already consider themselves an expert before you are in front of them. So as you making sure that your people are trained at a competency level, that they're that's what I see as a real challenge, and it's just making sure that as everybody's competing for personnel and different things and all like that, that you really are putting a high quality individual out in people's homes and business.
Training, I guess, is a huge thing for you guys.
One of the biggest things that we beyond the budget process, early on, we hired a PhD in entomology to set up and our training. So when we were maybe I wouldn't say a tenth, but certainly a fifth the size we are today, we had that position filled, and that was always an emphasis in making sure that our the people that we send to your home and to your business are as trained and competent as they can be.
Well, we're into the show here, and I wanted to try to let you kind of finish it up. What advice would you have out there, not for the startup, but for the person that's been in business 3 or 4 years, thinking about going to the next plateau? What kind of advice would you give that person?
Those are pretty easy for me. Things I look back on that have perhaps had the biggest impact on our business as of late has been, community involvement. You look at things, being involved in the community, creating a culture where you encourage your people to be involved. I mean, you can, it just comes back to you many, many times over. Not looking at things and saying that, I just don't have time to do this. I mean, I think back the opportunities that came my way to get more involved in the community at the time. I said, boy, I'm just too busy to do that. And then you do it and you say, wow, why didn't I do that 10 years ago? And because it creates opportunities that you don't even know exist. And then you develop relationships out of that, much the way you do, quite honestly, in school growing up or whatever. And so many of those things.
Everybody's an ambassador, right?
Yeah, that's right. And even people that come to work for you. I mean, you train them and you coach them up, because if they do leave and you don't want them to leave, you want them to leave having benefited from the time they've been there, and they become an ambassador for you. And then find good mentors. I mean, find people that have been there before. And I guess the other thing is learn how to listen, be a good listener. I mean, there are examples of successful businesses and people all around you, and study them, see what what works for them, and don't try to necessarily become who they are or what they do, but certainly you can glean some real good best practices that help you as far as your business and all is concerned.
And but along that line, like I say, you don't want to try to copy them. You need to try to see what they do and try to adapt those. But you still need to try to be yourself, because we're all unique. But there could be one thing that you're intimating is that you've got to be objective to yourself, and you've got to step back and realize that I could do better. How can I do better?
Yeah. My cousin Jim Allgood, something he said to the group a number of years ago, kind of a statement, said, one day our whole leadership team recognized we're not right or wrong, we're different. And being different, we all have different perspectives and different ideas, and we can, together, we become a stronger team.
Sure.
And that's kind of how we, build our business. And I think that's important. Those around you have been there, have done that, and you can learn a whole lot faster from from those examples.
Boy, thanks for your time today. And if I could just kind of check off a lot of the things that we have, a lot of recurring themes that come up on this show. Community involvement, how important the relationship with the customer is, how important hiring good people are, training them, getting them out there. You mentioned mentors. We had a whole thing on mentors. And, there are just a lot of common themes. And it's interesting that not all of it is financial. A lot of it is just trying to be better people and a better company. And the financial kind of takes care of itself a little bit.
Right.
Well, listen, that's our show for the day. And Perry, thank you so much for being with us. It was very well done, and I'd like to have you back at some point. So let's try to do that if you don't mind.
It would be my pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.
Good. That's our show for today. This has been On the Money, and the #1 small business show on Business Radio X. And because of guests like Perry, will continue to be that way. We're presented by Embassy National Bank. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at on_the_money and then the number 1. You can listen to any of our shows out on onthemoney.businessradiox.com and download our shows off of iTunes. But we also you can watch the video of the show out on the Business Radio X Gwinnett YouTube channel. So thanks for listening. Again, Perry, thank you for being here. Until next time, I'm Joe Moss at Embassy National Bank. And again, be careful out there. It's a tough world. Leave fear in the back seat, and we talked about it right at the end of the show. Stay authentic, stay true to yourself. So with that, we sign off, and we'll see you next time.